not because he had any brilliance of his own, but he reflected God's brilliance to the rest of the universe. In fact, the Bible refers to Jesus, to Christ, in Malachi 4:2 as the Son of Righteousness. So really, after Christ, Lucifer was the next brightest being in heaven. So he was kind of the moon to Christ's son, if you will. So that's part of the name. That's part of what it means when it calls him the son of the morning. So we have Lucifer as God's messenger. And we also have that he is God's reflector, right? He reflected God's brilliance. So we have two of his roles so far. But not only that, Lucifer was God's defender. What exactly does that mean? Keep your finger in Isaiah, if you have it, and turn to Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 14. And this is also talking about Lucifer. Someone can read this. Anyone with a loud voice, just stand up and read it if you found it. Ezekiel 28:14.
You were the anointed cherub who covers. I established you. You were on the holy mountain of God. You walked back and forth in the midst of fiery stones.
All right, so the Bible refers to Lucifer here as the anointed cherub. What is that talking about? When the children of Israel left Egypt, they hadn't really been talking to God for several years. And so God had to do some things to kind of remind them of who he really was. And so one of the things he did was to have them build a sanctuary, right? He said, build me a sanctuary that I may dwell, with my people. And one of the key parts of the sanctuary was what? Anybody know what it was? The center of the sanctuary. What was the most important piece? You guys know this. The Ark of the Covenant, right? Because that's where God set up shop. That's where he dwelt, and that's where he communicated to the children of Israel from. So let's look at that. And the description of the Ark of the Covenant kind of explains what it means when it says Lucifer was the covering cherub. So let's turn to Exodus chapter 25, verses 16 to 22. So we're going to take this one verse by verse. And I'm going to need some help explaining this part of the story. I hope you guys can see this. So this is here. I'll just stick it up front. No, this is this back. Anybody found it? Exodus chapter 25, verses 16 to 22. Someone just start with verse 16 for me.
You shall put into the ark the testimony which I will give to you.
Alright, so that's verse 16. So he says, put the testimony into the Ark of the Covenant. I don't have an extra Bible up here, but what we're going to do is pretend this is our mercy seat, right? And so the Ark of the Covenant is going to be underneath. So pretend this is the Bible. The testimony in the verse is talking about the Bible, the law, right? So the Bible goes under here. Alright, Kev, next verse.
You shall make a mercy seat of pure gold. 2.5 cubits shall be its length, and 1.5 cubits its width.
Alright, so this isn't pure gold, but this is going to be our mercy seat. It's going to serve the purpose, see? Alright, 18.
And you shall make 2 cherubim of gold, of hammered work. You shall make them at the 2 ends of the mercy seat.
Alright, can I get 2 volunteers? I need 2 people to sign up to be angels from this evening. Is anybody? Alright, all we got, well, you guys. Alright, these 2, because they're kind of, yeah, we need to be the same height. You guys come on. Or just 2 people. A couple of the sisters do it. Alright. Alright, so I need one of you guys to stand right here on this side. And somebody stand on this side. Alright, next verse.
Make 1 cherub at the end, and the other cherub at the other end. You shall make the cherubim at the 2 ends of it.
Alright, so they're in place. Go ahead.
Of 1 piece with the mercy seat.
Alright, verse 20.
And the cherubim shall stretch out their wings above, covering the mercy seat with their wings. And they shall face one another. The faces of the cherubim shall be towards the mercy seat.
All right, so I need you guys to face each other. I know you guys don't have wings, right? So we'll pretend your arms are wings. So put your arms up like this, and I need you to kind of like this, and touch the tips of each other's hands. Kind of like, all right, there you go, there you go. That was 20. All right, 21.
You shall put the mercy seat on top of the ark, and in the ark you shall put the testament that I will give you.
All right, so we have the mercy seat above the ark, right? And the ark contains the law. All right, last verse.
And there I will meet you, and will speak with you from above. The mercy seat from between the two cherubim, which are on the ark of the testimony about everything which I will give you in commandment to the children of Israel.
All right, so I guess Alan, you hopped up, so you can be God. So just sit right here for me in the mercy seat, just for tonight, man. Don't we get in trouble. All right, so you guys can keep your arms up. All right, so this is according to the Bible. This is what the Ark of the Covenant looked like, right? Underneath the mercy seat, you had the testimony, which is basically the law of God, and then over the ark, you had the mercy seat, where God spoke, and then where his glory was, and then above that you had the two covering angels, right? Now we just mentioned it said that Lucifer was a covering angel, right? All right, so the Ark of the Covenant shows something very important in reference to the way that God saves us. He puts the law at the bottom, and the mercy seat is over it. Anybody catch that? In other words, all of us have sinned and fallen short of God's glory, right? The Bible makes that clear. And so if God had put the law above the mercy seat, we'd all be short. None of us would make it, right? But because of his sacrifice, y'all getting tired? I'm almost done. Because of his sacrifice, the mercy is over the law. And so because of that mercy being where it is, we all have a chance to get to heaven. That should make somebody say amen. Amen. All right, so Alan, thanks, man. So you guys, all right, you gotta have a seat. Thank you so much. So Lucifer was the covering cherub, right? So that means that he was not just God's messenger, he was also God's defender. When you look at Psalms 91, that's what it means. When the Bible talks about cover or covering, it's talking about being a defender. Now, does God actually need defense? No. Right? God's already omnipotent. He has all power. So he doesn't need physical defense. So what is the Bible talking about? Since Lucifer was God's messenger, whenever he would send him to different parts of the universe, he'd often take, God's decisions, what God said. He was carrying a message. And so sometimes people, or some of the beings on other planets would, kind of scratch their heads and say, well, why did God say that? And he would be the one to step in and defend God's law and his mercy. So that was Lucifer's role. So we have 3 of his roles now. What was the first one? Anybody remember? Messenger, royal messenger. What was 2? Morning star, right? God's reflector. He reflected God's glory. What about the one we just covered? What was that? God's defender. So let's do one more. Ezekiel 28, verse 13. Somebody can read it when you get there. Ezekiel 28, 13.
You are in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone adorned you. Ruby, topaz, and emerald, chrysolite, onyx, and jasper, sapphire, turquoise, and beryl. Your settings and mountings were made of gold. On the day you were created, they were prepared.
Alright, so this verse talks about his covering, right? The first few verses talks about how his clothes were essentially just kind of jewels and stuff like that. But then it says 2 things at the end. It talks about his tabrets and his pipes. Tabrets are just tambourines. That's all. All of us know what tambourines look like, right? You kind of shake them and you hit them. That's what tabrets are. It depends on what version you have, but basically those are tambourines. And I don't know how God pulled this off. I don't know how you put this in a person, but God, when he designed Lucifer, he had tambourines in him. Don't ask me how that works, right? That's what the Bible says. But not only that, it says pipes. pipes. Now, I was just going to say all of us, but many of you guys have been to some of these big cathedrals, right? And you see, like, you know, the pipe for the pipe organ. And when the organist hits some of these notes, especially the lower ones, it's like the building is shaking, right? So Lucifer, in his body, had pipes. So he could hit more than one note at a time, right? We talk about that all the time. He was the music director in heaven. Sister White says that he was the one that would lead the choir. You know, some of us think we could sing. We could do one note at a time, you know, but this dude, I mean, you name the note. You know, he could sing it, right? And so he was heaven's music director. So we have that he was God's, what was the first one? Royal messenger. He was God's reflector, defender. What did we just say? Covering, exactly, defender. And he was God's musician. God's musician. Now, check this out. Check this out. We said he was God's messenger, right? He was the light bearer. That was his name. All right? Testimonies, volume 9, page 19. In a special sense, Seventh-day Adventists have been set in the world as watchmen and light bearers. It gets better. Messengers, right? Light bearer. What else did we say he was? We said he was God's defender, right? He defended God's law and his mercy. Now, as Adventists, when our church came together, it was people from all different backgrounds, right? Baptists and Catholics and Methodists. And one of the central doctrines in the early church was that the 7 days of Sabbath. They opened the Bible and said, whoa, we've been going to church on Sunday. The Ten Commandments say, go to church on Sabbath, right? The seventh day is holy. And so in a way, we have been put in place as defender of God's law, right? Because a lot of people have kind of sort of X'd out that part of the commandment, right? The fourth commandment is the only one that starts with the word remember. Because God knew when he wrote the Ten Commandments, he knew people would be prone to forget. So before the fourth commandment, he put remember. So in a way, we're the ones who've been kind of pointing people back and say, hey, take a second look at the Ten Commandments. God says go to church on the seventh day. And for those of you, I know some of you here aren't Adventists, so when you go home, just pop open the Bible. Exodus 20, it's right there for yourself. You can read the Ten Commandments the way God gave them. And if we say that the law is a transcript of God's character and God doesn't change, the law doesn't change. So in a way, our role is, all you have to do is look at our name, right? It's Seventh-day Adventist. Seventh-day Adventist, right? And so in a way, we have been put in place as a defender of the Sabbath. All right. We said, what else? That Lucifer was God's reflector, right? He reflected his glory. Christ Object Lessons, page 69. It says, when the character of Christ shall be perfectly reproduced in his people, then he will come to claim them as his own. What does that sound like to you? Perfectly reproduced. That's a reflection. Is it clicking? All right. And what did we say last? That he was God's musician.